Hello, welcome back to All for United WFC. What a 20, I was going to say 48 hours, 24 hours. It feels like 48. I mean, where do we even start with that yesterday? I mean, if you're looking at the predictions that we'll kind of put out and everyone talking about, I don't think anyone was anywhere close to predicting that. That was quite something. So we've got plenty to get through. We'll try and get through this in about 45, 50 minutes because we know everyone's going to want to watch the big game tonight. So we'll try and get through all of that. But first, we are going to start with a little bit of United news. Obviously, another official confirmation that's come out today. Rachel Williams is the second confirmed signing by the club. So we're just going to get initial thoughts. We're going to do a full show on this tomorrow. So we are only going to get brief thoughts from Barry and Andrew here. But Barry, throwing it over to yourself first. Rachel Williams, then another forward signed. How are you feeling on that one?
Down to what we were talking about when we spoke about Nikita Paris the other night as well, which is that, thank you, that's helpful. I think it all comes down to what we were talking about the other night with Nikita Paris. And, you know, the fact that at the moment we do seem to be focusing a lot on that end of the pitch. I'd like to see some news, to be honest with you, about the back line and reinforcing what we've got there. But in terms of Rachel, I think, you know, at the end of the day, she's forward, as you've mentioned. She doesn't appear to be the most prolific in terms of numbers, but doesn't really mean all that much. You know, obviously Mark's worked with her before when she was at Birmingham. And, you know, watching the interview that she's done on the app, I think, you know, she came across really well. You know, when asked what it was that she could provide for the club and what the fans could expect to see, it was just hard work, a work ethic every single time. So, you know, I would imagine that she's going to be in the sort of mould of Martha Thomas. And if she puts in that level of work rate and that level of effort, then, you know, I think we can look forward to her becoming a fan favourite.
Fingers crossed. And same question to yourself, Andrew, on this one.
Yeah, I think Skinner's mentioned, like in the last season, several points, you know, where bringing in Rachel Williams, you know, we can unlock those stubborn defences and kill games off. Whereas, you know, last season, some games we lost, you know, points from winning positions, and, you know, obviously that experience, you know, could help us next season, you know, getting inside that top three as well, which we just fell short last season with, you know, particularly a young squad. So I say that experience will definitely help us going forward, and so exciting to see her pull on the United shirt in the upcoming season.
100%, and yeah, we all wish her well, and hopefully she does bits for us next season. We could do with a few goals. So, but we'll do a full reaction show to the Rachel Williams sign tomorrow at 7:00. Interesting as well. We might actually discuss this on the fans forum potentially. Maya Letizia has just done a statement just before we went live about leaving Brighton. So, is that potentially United? I might just throw it out there just to start a rumor.
Right, Mark, you tell us. Are we signing Maya?
Maybe. We'll have to see.
So there we are. So potentially that's a talking point as well. We'll get straight into the Lionesses stuff then. I don't even know where to start, because usually you'd go through and you go, right, we'll have a look at some of the goals. Well, we've got 8 to choose from. So if we did that, we'd be here all night. But I'll come to each of you for kind of your initial thoughts in terms of... We probably expected England to win to an extent, but surely not by that margin, Barry.
Well, I mean, it was rubbish, wasn't it? I mean, you mentioned about the predictions at the very start, and you're quite right. Looking at it, literally everybody, with the exception of one person who shall remain nameless, Connor, put England down to win by about 1 goal. There was one person who thought, oh, it's going to be a draw. But like I say, we won't speak too much about that, which says it all. But it was all just by the odd goal. And I think that's where we were all expecting. You know, it was going to be a tight game. It was going to be a tough game. But I think we all expected England to win. If I'm honest, I think the penalty when it came was really helpful, because it set us off. You know, a nice early goal can do that, and it gives you that freedom. And I think if the game had gone on a bit longer, still at 0-0, it would have been a much trickier task for England, because then they're in a situation where scoring is more important because it hasn't happened yet, and you're wondering if it's a bit like the Aston Villa game that the United women were at. You know, the longer it goes on, the less likely you seem like you're going to score. Every chance that you miss becomes really, really important. It didn't happen because of that, and I think scoring that one then was just so important. And I think what that gave us as a team was that we did that, but then the Hemp goal came immediately afterwards, like 3 minutes, I think it was. And then there was a little bit of a gap. So the goals did come in quick succession. But no, there's not a person on this planet who has put an 8-0 down for England against Norway. I mean, they're only 3 ranking points below us. You know, they're 11th in the world, I think, and we're 8th. So it's just crazy to think that we could knock that many past them. And I mean, I know we were talking in our group chat, weren't we? And we were all just like, what's going on here? It just wasn't totally unexpected, but so good to watch at the same time.
Yeah, just I was going to say, just to add on Barry's points, I mean, I think we was expecting England to win, but probably maybe 3-1, 4-1, but not 8-0. It's like, say, from the first victory against Austria, it was like very underwhelming. We thought that was going to be like, say, 2-3, 4-0, but you know, let's say England did start in a bit of a cagey fashion this time, and say Norway were the ones, you know, on the attacks straight away, and it was like, let's say we could have had a few problems, but then once, you know, England settled, I think it was like a mixture of like the press, the width, and a clear game plan that they just executed to just, I say, perfection. I mean, like with that the penalty, the way that was worked it into the penalty area. That was after twice regaining the ball as well. So, and like when the penalty went in by Georgia Stanway, I was thinking she had some guts to take that, because Ellen White, who, you know, got us the penalty, I thought she'd be the one to take it, but Georgia Stanway just said, look, I'll be the one to take it, and she took it away nicely. So, and then what just followed was just, I say, an onslaught by England. It was just like every time we were on the attack, it was like, we're going to score again and again and again. I mean, I think I'm trying to remember I think it was the one particular, I can't remember which goal it was, the cross by Lauren Hemp to Beth Mead. I was just thinking, such a perfect cross. All she had to, Beth Mead had to do was just glide it into the goal. And then, I say, second half, I don't want to say we took our foot off the gas, but I just think we just controlled it throughout. And I mean, it's good to see Russo get her first goal of the tournament. Would have been nice to see Tooney get on there as well, but say maybe in the next game. But I say, I did feel a bit sorry for Norway. I thought I'd have expected a bit more from them. And say, especially our players, Vilda and Maria. And say, Maria didn't have the best game, because literally the defending was a bit all over the place as well. So, but definitely a statement of intent from England to the rest of the countries in the tournament. So we're here, and we're going to go all the way and try and win it.
Yeah, 100%. There's a couple of comments here that I just wanted to bring up and reference. Yes, you know, Sporty, they're talking about, you know, Maria and Vilda, and speaking to some people that are in and around the Norway camp. You know, they're just saying today was just almost silence, you know, in and around it. They're not really talking, and it just seems like a really disconnected kind of group. And it would be, you know, after that, I would have been the worst loser possible. I don't think I'd have spoke to anyone for about a week if I was on that team. You know, Luke raising a good point here. You know, that was fantastic. The reference during the game. You know, Lord Sugar, if you're watching, that kind of thing, with his ridiculous notion that he's come out with about men not being involved in the Euros or whatever he came out with. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that too much. And Johnny are talking about, you know, incredible game. Mead is some player, 100%. I think Charlie put it in one of our chats. You know, get Beth Mead in onto United, but I don't think that's going to happen. I want to bring up a point actually. It's kind of in relation to obviously to England, but also in terms of, are we now seeing that this is maybe the difference at this level? You've got Sarina obviously on one side and the Norway coach on the other. It didn't seem like Norway had a bit of a plan. Now, obviously, we will get into the brilliance of the Lionesses in a second. But it did seem, to me, I don't think England were great, but I think there was another level to England. But I will say, I think Norway made it particularly easy for them, especially down that left-hand side that Beth Mead was on. I think there's a graphic that came out. Norway were defended in really weird, like, 2 banks of 3. So you had, you know, 3 on one side, 3 on another, but like 10 yards apart in terms of kind of depth, which didn't make any sense because you got one keeping them all on side and the other one's pressing for it. So I'll just come around to each of you in terms of, is this a difference we're seeing then? Sarina, obviously, you know, fantastic coach, drilling it into this England squad, that England had a system and maybe Norway didn't. Is that the way we're kind of looking at this game?
Well, no, I don't believe that if I'm honest, for 1 minute. I don't think there's any manager that ever sends their team out without a system or a way of playing. Whether or not that particular way of playing is one that fits the team or is one that's going to be ultimately good is a different matter altogether. I think Sarina's had a lot of time to spend with the team. And I think, this is where I know there's a lot of conversation about the international friendlies and things like that we play, and how the qualification system works, and how is it any good for the players when you're winning 20-0 against Latvia? That can't be good for the game. Well, I disagree, and at the moment this is how we're seeing it, because those games still get them the opportunity to play together, to get to know how each other play, and it keeps the positivity up. So I would not be surprised to see us go on and keep on playing as well as we have done, getting the goals and doing what we're doing, because we're just used to doing it. It's the sort of score lines that not that you expect to see, but that's not a surprise, because they've got that capability. Ellen White's on, I think she's 1 goal behind Wayne Rooney internationally. So, it's just not like, as much as people might dig her out because she's City, she's very good at what she does, and the way that she took her goal was really, really good. The argument about changing, I think, is I would challenge other people and say, what would you have done in that game? Because, like I say, the first 2 goals were in the first sort of 15, 16 minutes. And then it sort of settled for a little bit. There was a good 10 minutes or so where there were no goals, and you would think as Norway at that point, at 2-0, you're not going to panic. There's a whole game to go. This is perfectly capable of putting it back. The thing is that after that 10 minutes and after those goals, and then when we got the third one, they imploded. It was just, they were gone. They weren't helping themselves. Blackstad was just getting absolutely ripped apart. I mean, I just hope that's an absolute, harbinger of things to come for next season, because I would love to see us on that game before Christmas doing the same thing and just, making old Blackstad look the way that she looked there. And I did think that Thor's performance had a bit of a, that was sort of to do with it, because you can only do so much. You're in a bank of 4 at the end of the day. You're very much reliant as well on how the other 3 people and the goalkeeper do as well. It's not just about you. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's just about the system. I just think a lot of things went wrong for Norway, and it was really hard, I think, at that point. It's one thing to try and pull yourself back, just generally. I think it's another thing altogether to have to try and come back and do it against a side that was playing as well as England was. And it was just fluid and beautiful to watch. And it was down that left-hand side, like you say. And it was, like I say, Blackstad was being put to the sword. And then as a result, Mead was getting the ball, putting it back, crossing it, might be coming over to Hemp, putting it back into the middle. And they didn't know where to go. And it just goes to show, one person doesn't do their job properly in the defence, it makes a massive difference for the other 3, because they're then trying to pull them out of the hole. And you couldn't put them out of the hole because they were just too good. Lauren Hemp, one of the best young talents that you're going to see in the WSL. Ellen White, the matriarch of English football at the moment. It wasn't going to happen. It was not going to happen. And that's why we went and scored 8 goals. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I mean, you can't just put it down, I don't think, to a Norwegian system. I think it is a mixture of the both. They didn't do what they should have done. Absolutely. They did make it a bit easier for us. But in my mind, if we'd have played like we were playing against Austria, I think Norway would have felt like they had a chance to come back in. But we didn't. We were magical because we had the confidence. The confidence that you get winning like 700 games on the trot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Andrew, before I let you come in on that, I just want to say we'll come back round to Beth Mead, because obviously she is the top scorer now. I think she had a hat-trick yesterday. I mean, if anyone's seen Ian Wright on the gantry, I'm going to call it, so to speak, he was... I'm surprised he didn't come out with like a saying like, I don't know, it's Beth Mead's world and we're all living in it or something like that. He was that kind of ecstatic on the comms. But yeah, I think you are right to an extent. The only reason I raise this question is because I just think, speaking to people in and around Norway, that system clearly didn't work. You've got players out of position. That whole back line, you could argue, and none of them are in their natural position. You've got 2 in midfield who are not sitting midfielders. So it's a real tough one. But Andrew, where do you kind of sit on this? Do you think England were really, really good? Or do you think Norway were really, really poor? Or do you think it's kind of somewhere in the middle?
I'd say it's probably England were that good, and they just overwhelmed Norway. I mean, the Norway manager would have had, the plan of what he wanted to do, and so I think the first 10 minutes, Norway were the ones that were slightly attacking more, looking to cause more of the problems. But it's just once England settled and once that penalty went in, it's like I say, the game plan could still be used by Norway, man. It's just going to say have to work their way back in the game. It was like, well, once the third and fourth goal went in, it was like, well, the plan's out the window. It's like, well, do I go all out and attack and try and get something out of this game, or do I just be like damage limitation? Like I think the France-Italy game, when they clearly run away with it in the first half, well, for the Italians, it was like, well, we don't want to be, in double figures here. So they just, just like, well, we'll keep this to a respectable score. But no, I think England were just, it was like they were ruthless, and that's what Sarina wants them to be. It's like even when we was 8-0 up, I bet she's thinking, well, I want 9 as well. So I just want those, players to, to play to the best of their abilities. I mean, because she packs the side with like technicians, wanting to impose themselves on the opposition, and which just Norway just got overwhelmed, and certain players in the Norwegian squad just could not cope with that. As I said earlier, the width and the press. I mean, that right hand side with Bronze, Stanway, and Mead, it was just like that axis was just like they're both interchanging and like getting the attack, and their defense just could not cope one iota. So I'm hoping like Norway, they'll just bounce back after this because they play Austria in the last game. So it's all to play for who gets, that second position. So it'd be nice to see, Norway get through, especially for, Vilda and Maria as well. So, but yeah, not a good night for Norway, but a brilliant one for England.
I know, in some sense, obviously, Charlie was in the comments persuaded me. So I am actually going to that Norway game on Friday because I thought can't go the whole Euros without going to a single game. So it's actually got a lot riding on it now, whereas before it was kind of a bit like, oh, it's a pointless game, really. Now we're going to that game with, a lot riding on it, so I'm actually looking forward to that. There's a lot of chat, obviously, in the comments here. I'm kind of, it sounds like I'm really taking the side of Norway here, but I do agree. I think they could have done something. It was evident after the first couple of minutes that side was getting heavily torn apart. So we will come back around to that, though. But I want to focus on some of the goals because there's plenty to get through. I'm going to glance over the penalty because I think we can talk about that, maybe a little bit later towards the end. But obviously, there's a lot of good goals in here to choose from. I'll come to each of you in terms of, I guess first off, do you have a standout? Was there a goal that you thought, wow, that's England at their best there? Because I mean, there's a couple to choose from. There's a couple of Mead's kind of individual brilliance in the box, the Hemp cross, the Mead header, Ellen White's goal, nicked it off Maria and slotted it in nicely. So Barry coming to you, obviously Russo. I forget Russo scored because there was so much that happened in that game, and you just forget that who scored half the time. Obviously Russo in the second half. I mean, Barry, for you, was there a standout where you thought this is England at the best now?
Well, obviously we're on a United channel, and I'm a United fan, so I'm going to go Russo, aren't I? Because I said from the start that she should be playing, and she should be playing for the reason of the fact that she scored the goal with the manner she did. I told everybody she's ruthless in the air. She's so good at getting her head on the ball, and she absolutely did that. But I don't think that was England at their best, if you're asking me that question. So the goal that I liked the most is Russo's, but the one that I think stood out for me the most, that I liked the most, was actually Ellen White's. When you watch it and you see how we pressed, we just weren't giving them any time. And this is what, Charlie's one there about being ruthless. This is what they were doing. 2-0 up, and they are still chasing everybody down. And they did that. The ball was bouncing up. The ball, she couldn't get it under control properly. And then as she turns, Ellen White just comes in, picks her pocket, ends up on the floor, and off goes Ellen White. She still had the pace to get herself into the box unabated. And then before you know it,
even when she's not on the panel, she's abusing me. What's going on here?
I know, right? It's outrageous. Back in the box, girl. Don't laugh like I'm going to go at you. But yeah, so I love the way that we did that, the way that we were fighting back to get possession, the way that we just absolutely went at them. We just did not let up. And that's what I mean. You can say, why didn't he change the system? They were 6-0 down, and you've just spoken about what the atmosphere is like in the team at the moment. I mean, it's blown their minds. It's blown their minds. You know, I don't think you can really say much more than that. They've absolutely, we can't. I know we have a tendency to go, let's not build England up too much because ultimately it always ends in tears. But you can't underestimate how well they have performed in that match, because they made Norway did play poorly. Yes, they did. And the system didn't necessarily help them. They didn't have players do what they should have done. Of course, all of that is true. You've still got to go out there and beat them. And we didn't just beat them. We absolutely annihilated them. It was a Norwegian annihilation, I think I put in the chat, you know. So 100% for me. I thought that goal I liked the most because it just showed the hunger. You know, they'd got the bit between their teeth and they were going for it. It's like when you watch boxing and it's that bit just before the knockout comes where you just see the punches are raining down, everybody's going mad. And to me, that was it. They were just rocking at that point. And at 3-0, I think I knew at that point that was game over. You nearly turned the telly off at that point. So I think you knew that. Yeah.
It was more to do with who was scoring and the fact that the goals were going in, I think. And just very quickly, Marcy, you were sticking up for me a second ago. And now you're encouraging Charlie. Don't be encouraging her, because I've already been called boring by Charlie today. I think it was obviously joking away in our little group chat. But yeah, so there's a lot of shouts for some goals in here. You know, there's a lot of talking about the Mead goal, the Solar one that I referenced there. As Charlie said before, she insulted me. Not that one, that comment. Talking about the kind of slalom through the thing. But there's a lot of good goals to choose from. But Andrew, is there any for yourself?
So besides Russo's, I think it was probably Lauren Hemp's goal, because I was thinking, looking back when they're showing the replays, her positioning, because she was like on the far left and she could see the ball coming in. Ellen White was there prime just like to tap it in, but she like spotting the cross coming in, she literally got in front of Ellen White. It was just that instinct to know, I'm going to get in the box. So I think they were all with Ellen White and Lauren. It was like, well, we're going to be ruthless here. We're going to go for it, and because they initially thought, is that offside? But Lauren Hemp timed it so perfectly, and because I thought Ellen White there hit it off Lauren Hemp, and then it was offside, but that wasn't the case. But Lauren Hemp's goal was pretty good. I've got to say, probably the Beth Mead's the goal for a hat trick. I mean, the anticipation as well. The goalkeeper was going to fumble it, and then she was just there ready to pounce, and just to add the icing on the cake as well. So all around, every goal has their own merit of being the best goal during the game. Even the penalty as well, like Georgia Stanway. Ellen White could have easily took that, but Stanway says, "I'll step up and I'll do it as well." So any one of them.
100%. And just for the record, see what you've done, Charlie? You've started a little rumour here. I do know what slalom means.
Well, you see, it's all going downhill now.
That is our very own Charlie starting rumours about me live on air. I do know what that word means, but yes, I am happy that I'm going to Norway. That's it. Couldn't miss the whole tournament. I had to get to one of them, so trying down for that one. You mentioned the penalty there. I want to come back around to that, because that, for me, changed the game, because a lot of people said, Norway were really poor, and I think they were after the second goal in particular, but they were all right up until that point. And I thought, attacking-wise, they were in the game. Now, I think that penalty completely changed the whole game. Now, you can't put it down to, its first 12 minutes or whatever it was. They should have had the mental capacity to come back from that, particularly after the second goal as well. I know it was only a couple of minutes later, but with the attacking top line you've got, you'd think Norway would come back into it. But I think that changed the game. And the reason why I think this is because the penalty for me, I don't know what people, say what you want in the comments on this one. I really don't think it was a penalty. And I think that affected the Norway backline and how they defended the England attackers, because it seemed like they were very scared to go into a tackle after that because of the fear of giving away fouls and penalties and whatever it was. Now, I don't know what you two think on that, but I do think that's what changed the game ultimately. And then when you go 3-4-0 down, the heads go, and I tweeted after the game that's the mental side of the game showing, that none of them trusted each other. And I don't think they trusted the ref, particularly in the first 25 minutes, to make a tackle because of what happened with the penalty. So, Mary, just throw it over to yourself first with that one in terms of the actual penalty decision itself and the kind of impact that had on the game. Because I think they said at half-time, actually, that once England get the first goal, they can go and push on, and they can really go for the go for the game. But in tighter games, that's where England might struggle a little bit.
Oh, it's not just what they say, Connor. That's exactly what I said. To a T. The minute they got the goal, they could relax. Listen, it wasn't a penalty in my eyes. Not at all. Was there contact? Of course there was. First things first, the foot did go on to her foot. So there was that contact. The problem was when you listen, it was the commentary. I have to say, she did say on that, oh yes, you can see she's pulled her down. That no, she didn't. To pull, you've got to actually grab hold of something. That's a pull. Just putting your hand on them isn't a pull. That's just having a hand in the way. I didn't think for 1 second it was a penalty, and if I'm brutally honest with you, I think Ellen White did see that it was going away from her, so she just thought, oh yeah, that'll see what happens. And at the end of the day, she bought it. The contact was there. The ref was within her rights to give it. The problem was once she gave it, I think you then have to question the VAR again. I'm generally a fan of VAR. I think that it's going to solve more problems than it creates. But I think on something like that, I think if she looks at that again, I don't see her sitting there and saying that's definitely a penalty. I think she goes home that night, and when she's sitting there with her Horlicks and just checking, the game, see how she's done, doing a little bit of research, I reckon she looks at that and she gets a bit embarrassed because she's been conned, basically, in that one. So I wouldn't have given a penalty for it. I think the problem is that you then can't say it was a clear and obvious error once it's been given, because if she says, well, I saw contact, the hand's there or the foot caught her, then that's it. Exactly that, Marty. She feels the contact, she goes down, and that's what I mean. She bought the penalty. It wasn't a stonewall penalty. It's one of those where you see them given and you see them not. It was given. It wasn't a penalty, but am I bothered? Not really.
I think for me personally, I think that it raises the question as Sport is saying here, where was, what is VAR there for? And saying what Harry's saying here, VAR's embarrassing. That's my big issue with it. Because if that game, obviously we don't know what, it's hindsight looking back and that kind of thing, but, in a big game in the Euros, that decision's got to be correct. Now, they're going to argue that it's the correct decision, but looking at pretty much most England fans will say that wasn't a penalty, just because it's very soft. I don't think it does the game much good, personally, having a soft decision like that. I mean, Andrew...
No, when you look at the replay, you see Vilda comes back out again and she's really shouting at the ref. She's like, rah! And I think on that occasion, VAR stands for Vilda's always right.
Have you just come up with that one?
I did, yeah. That's why I interrupted you. I thought, no, that's good enough. That deserves an interruption.
100%. And well, like Luke's saying, it should have gone to the screen. I mean, Andrew, well, we've had a lot of shows talking about VAR on the men's channel and, a little bit on this one as well. But, I mean, what do you reckon on this one? Do you think it's a soft penalty? Do you think it should be given? And do you think it impacted the game, like I said at the start, that the Norway defenders then maybe didn't go in as strong after that?
I was going to say, I think it was a penalty. Yes, you can argue it was probably soft. Because when Ellen White was in the box with the ball, you could see Maria, she tried to get the ball off and she caught a leg, and then Ellen White didn't go down. But then I think as Ellen White passed her, she caught the back of Ellen White's ankle, so that's why she felt the contact, and then obviously she went down. So it's not going to say, well, it's clear and obvious that it wasn't. So yes, you could argue it was a soft penalty, but I just think Maria was like, when she was trying to tackle Ellen White, it's like, well, inside the box, and if you mistime it, then you're asking for trouble. The referee's going to give the penalty. So it's just like, and I think it's once the second goal went in, I think Norway just sort of, they're starting to crumble. And then it was when Ellen White scored her first, when she shrugged Maria off, it was just like, they literally just, capitulated. It was just like, then England were just like in ruthless mode, and just Norway just, couldn't cope. It was just like, I expected a lot from like attacking wise, but then defensively, I was just like, there's just nothing there. And I'd probably say they probably were worse than the Italians the other night. I just think, we just destroyed them. And Norway are going to be hurting after this, and they'll want to show it against Austria that, we'll get our act together and the defence will be a bit more better, because God forbid they play like that against Austria, then they're going to be, it's going to be say, a short time in the Euros and they're back home. So, which I'd like to see, in Norway advance. Never know, play them again maybe in the final, and then maybe England do the same again. But it's just one of those.
I had them down as doing that, facing Norway in the final.
Yeah.
But I've just got to point this out. We never used the words Jason Cundy on TalkSport last night said to prove some sort of point. That's why would you do that? He's like the worst person ever. That's like going, Stevie Wonder said he saw. He didn't. Don't do it. It's not a good idea. He's such a bad pundit. My God, he says anything he can to wind people up, that chap. But he is right on that occasion, I will say.
After all that.
She dived.
Listen, the stopped clock is right once or twice a day, isn't it?
Don't think. Well, I'd say she got caught. So she went down. Yes, maybe soft penalty, but it's a penalty. So we're not complaining. England won.
100%. Before we look ahead, obviously to the game on Friday, which has got next to no relevance now because England have already gone through and topped the group, so it's kind of a pretty pointless game. It's a training exercise really on Friday. But just want to talk a little bit about the kind of the team selection. Obviously, it was unchanged. Now, a lot of people when they saw that line, particularly United fans, are obviously like Tooney and Russo. Where are they? In that team. Now, I think they've proven. From an England point of view, that Ellen White, obviously backed a couple, Stanway on the score sheet, that side looks pretty settled, I think. I think we'll see some rotation on Friday, with it being, a bit of a kind of training exercise. But, Barry, do you think that lineup now, that is the team? Take us into the quarterfinals. That's got to be the one now. You got Mead on one side, Hemp down the other, White down the middle. After a performance like that, or do you just think, as I said earlier, that you can't really look at that game because Norway were, so subpar, really?
I think a bit of both. I mean, I still maintain Russo should be starting. Nobody will ever convince me that shouldn't be the case right about now. But it's funny because I was listening to Radio 5 as I was going into work this morning. I just caught a little bit of an interview that was happening with Vicky Sparks, who was the commentator last night. And they were saying how Sarina doesn't tend to change her team very often. She doesn't tend to make those sorts of changes, even if there is something like that. I would think it would make sense to, and it shows because, she took Katie Zellum and didn't play her at all. So she's clearly not somebody who sits there and goes, yes, just because you're here, I'll play you. There has to be a reason for it. I would like to think that there'll be some players that get more chances. For example, I would start Toon over Kirby for two reasons. One, because I'm asking her to, and number two, because Kirby's, not been as fit as she could be and hasn't played as much football, so it makes sense for her to have a little bit of a rest before getting into the next round. I think it would be sensible to make a couple of changes and just switch it around a bit. Start with some of the players that you've been subbing on, and then bring on those other players as subs if you feel like you want to or need to, in order just to keep their eye in effectively. So I would do that. I would start with a Russo, a Toon, perhaps a Kelly, that sort of thing. I wouldn't make too many changes. Potentially, there's an argument that you might want to take Earps out and give one of the other two a chance because, like you just said, it's a dead rubber. It doesn't really matter. But it does go back to my previous argument at the beginning, which is that actually winning the games are really important. And what you wouldn't want to do is make changes and then just before going into a massive match in the next round, being in a situation where, you've just lost a game and then all of a sudden you've got to try and give it the old bounce back speech rather than let's carry on doing what we're already doing. So for me, the only change that I think is important is that. And, I'd say, just for the laughs, why not bring Nikita Paris on as well? Give her a chance down the right. What's the point in bringing her if you don't play her? Really good to see how she gets on.
I think this is the key, isn't it? When you're looking ahead to Friday, you're probably looking at Paris, you're probably looking at Stokes. The two keepers, you're not going to. It's not a friendly. You're not going to swap both keep. One does one half, the other does the other. It's not going to be like that. But Beth England, Carter, not had minutes. You'd maybe throw them in potentially. They're good players. That's what I mean. England's squad depth is very, very strong. It's not like you're talking about dropping a world class player for a Sunday league. You've got a lot. So yeah, I think it. You've thrown me off here, Barry, because you're bringing comments up. What's happening here?
Someone agree with you. I'm trying to bring you two back together. There's been so much arguing. Agreeing with you.
It's because I mentioned about Beth England and Charlie's there talking about when England bring on subs, it completely messed with my mind, and I was like, "What England are you talking about?" Yes, I do agree with that comment of things like that. And in relation to this comment, very very quickly, Man City is probably the answer for Letitia because they just sign everybody. Bringing it back to you, Andrew, then in terms of the lineup discussion, there's a like Charlie just said there, potentially this is the way forward. You've got your starting 11 pretty strong, but then you've got some Russo, Tooney. They can make the big impact off the bench. In a game like this, didn't really matter too much. 6 up at half time, it's not going to make the whole host of difference. But when you get later in the tournament, say we get Spain in the next round or whoever it is, in a really tight game, that's where they can make the difference, can't it? So would you look after this game, would you be looking to switch it around? Maybe not from Northern Line, I'm more thinking about the quarterfinals here. Would you be looking to switch it around, or would you kind of stick with what's worked so far?
I'd say stick with what's worked so far, because obviously, England are riding a crest of a wave, and the players, are full of confidence. Well, even those the ones that are coming off the bench, you can see how confident they are when they come on and just want to get on the ball and get scoring more for England as well. I'm just thinking, game on Friday. Yes, I like Russo and Tooney to start as well, get some more minutes under the belt. But is Sarina going to make wholesale changes? Don't think so. She want to keep that core, 11 together. So 1 or 2 additions, would you swap over Mary Earps? Because Mary's not. I don't think she's hardly had anything really to do besides the Austria game, which should pull off a few good saves. But yesterday, I think I only saw her touch the ball about a few times, and that was it. She's literally a spectator watching the other end. So it's whether she gives Ellie Roebuck or Hampton a try in goals, which whenever they get their minutes as well. And also you've got Chloe Kelly as well, hasn't needs some minutes as well. So I think I'd make some changes for Friday's game, but then revert back to, let's say, sticking to what Obviously, let's say England are in the quarters or reach semis or in the final. We need say we're having to chase a game or that bit of quality, to get the winning goal. Then Sarina's looking at the bench like, well, I can pick you, and you, and you can come on and just literally. You want players that can come on and change the game, at any point as well. So, yeah, you say if you keep the same 11, you're getting that consistency throughout as well. So, and that's what you want throughout a tournament. So, that consistency, hopefully, you reach the final and then win the tournament.
100%. I can see. What's Barry doing here? I always get worried when Barry starts writing stuff down. Right. It's especially when I've got John and Charlie ganging up on me here in the comments. So yeah.
No, I was literally just going to say we've won our last 13 games. The last game we lost was against Canada 2-0, and we lost against France 3-1 in the game before that. And I just thought I'd do a little bit of maths whilst Andrew was making his wonderful points. And in those 13 games, we've scored 89 goals. And I know that a lot of that, 20 of those, to be fair, is against Latvia. But, when you look at that as a general, we've not conceded any apart from the one against Netherlands, I think.
So I'm going to question your maths here, Barry, because I think it's higher than that.
Do you? Okay, then everyone, let's play maths with Barry. So if we go to that game against Canada, I'll let you do the adding up. So the first one was England 8, Macedonia 0. That's 8, everybody. We then had 10-0. That's 18. Plus 4, 4-0, 22. Plus 10, 32. Plus 1 against Austria, 33. Plus 20, 53. Plus 10, 63. Plus 5, 68. Plus 3, 71. Plus 5, 76. Plus 4, 80. Plus 1, 81, plus the 8 against Norway would be, everybody, 89.
Why have I
Gotta still questioning it.
Yeah.
How can you question it? What's there to question?
I don't know. I just remember reading somewhere that it was 90 something, but I don't know.
It's probably about was it an average about 6 or 7 a game? Well, if you average it out,
It would have been 90 something if you took the 2 games before the game before. It would have been 90 and 15 if you include the 1 goal that we scored against France in the game that we lost. So that might be what you've had. But I chose not to use those 2 because they made my
Yeah,
stats.
I was going to say, I've got 91, but so it's the 2 that you've ruined. There we are. Moving on. It's just like that's like a weird turn. Just replying to James's comments here. Obviously, you're talking about Williams and Kirsty Smith there. We are going to do a show on this. Maybe not Kirsty Smith. That'll probably be on Thursday with Barry's Fans Forum. That'll be spoken about. We are doing a show particularly on Rachel Williams tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So make sure you tune in for that one as well. And I think, Barry, you've got a new career coming up there, mate. Potentially.
To be honest, I wouldn't be as good on that one. I'm good on like this sort of version where we're just using little numbers. But I always get annoyed when they start bringing ones up like 25 and 75, and you have to start multiplying. Oh no, that gets a bit too much. You only get 30 seconds.
Not for me either. But just moving on, I want to ask this question in terms of, has that game changed the expectation of the fans? Now, a lot of England fans went into this tournament thinking we've got a really good chance here. One of the favourites for a reason, home tournament. England have got a good chance. They've just beaten one of the outside favourites 8-0. Do you think that's changed the perception maybe in terms of how the country is looking at this England side in terms of, at the start it was, they could win it. Now it's like they should win it. I don't know, Barry, what do you think on that one?
Well, the OGs will remember that I have said I'm expecting England to win the tournament, and that was before the tournament began. When I did my predictions of the whole thing, I had a Norway-England final. Out of the 2, the one that I think might not make it might be Norway now, based on that last game. But so I think personally, has it changed it? A little bit, because it strengthened my feeling. That game against Austria, I was sitting there thinking, is it the same sort of England? Is this what we've done now? We've built it up. It's going to be such a good thing. And, we're going to sort of hobble across the line, across the group, and then we're going to come up against a Germany or a France, and they're going to school us. And then this game against Norway, it's like, no, of course you were right, Barry. Why would you not have been? It's like they all just wanted to prove me right on that one. So I think on a personal level, no. On a national level, I think yes. The media will start to get more hyped up towards it because that's what they do. And I think we should celebrate that. There's so much that goes on in this world where we're so negative and so down on so many different things. I just think something like this is a time to celebrate. It's a home Euros. You've got the opportunity to see the girls if you want to. There's still tickets available for some of these games, as you found out, Connor, by going off to go and see one. It's a great opportunity to do that and to get behind them. So, I'm all for it. I think, that's what it should be. I think that the country's at its best when we get behind the sporting heroes and start getting behind it. And isn't that what we all want? Yes, if we don't win it, we'll all be disappointed and all that sort of jazz. But just imagine if we do. It's a great excuse to have an excellent party over the summer. So, the way I see it, bring it on. And I think that's what the girls would want to.
Do you know the only reason why I don't want England to win it is because I agreed on the Lionesses preview that we did that I've got to say those 3 words, that famous "it's" phrase. I'm not going to say it because I don't like it. But I've said I have to say that on the show that we do after the final. So if England do go on and win
it's definitely happening.
I don't want to say those 3 words. I didn't say it all last summer with the Vensado particularly. It's not a fan. Never been a fan of that phrase. But that's a very good point in terms of defence would be key. In terms of Brighton Williamson, that kind of partnership has. There's a lot of talk about Williamson maybe in midfield, but dropping back into centre half, I think is really shown in the last couple of days. I think for me, it's going to show when we come up against a really attacking team. I know you could argue Norway were, but you've got to have a strong defensive base before you can attack.
You only need the speed if they get in your half.
Exactly. And I think when England get tested, are Bronze and Daly going to be strong enough defensively to hold teams out? But Andrew, coming back around to yourself with kind of the same question there. John's talking about, it has changed the perception has changed around this England side. Do you think it has now after such a big win like that?
I think it's heightened the anticipation. I mean, as host of the tournament, England was always going to be seen as one of the favourites as well, and especially having Sarina as the manager as well. And we've also England reaching the semi-final of the last 3 international tournaments as well, and obviously Sarina winning the Euros with the Netherlands back in 2017. So after yesterday, I just think it's heightened it, and I'm just saying whether we're expected to win it or not. I just think, well, we're definitely amongst the favourites now, but you can't rule out the other sides that are in the Euros, like Spain, and say even France. With off the field issues before the tournament started, but the way they played against Italy, you're thinking, well, it doesn't seem like on the field they've got any problems. So you've just got to. I think you've got to be wary of everybody, even like somebody like Sweden. They've been quite, saying there could be a dark horse, to upset the odds. So we just got to be, wary of every side, that we don't want to have a banana skin and go out the tournament too early. So say all the signs are looking good. So fingers crossed on the I think 31st of July is the final, that England's playing at Wembley, and we're lifting the Euros at the end of it.
I disagree slightly. I don't think we've got to worry about Italy.
No.
Discard that this year.
Yeah, definitely. I've not seen it. I'm pretty sure West Germany doesn't exist.
Not for about 30 odd years.
I was going to say, I wasn't even born, I don't think, when West Germany got dissolved. But I do agree. I think, your Spain, France, Germany in particular, I think. And a lot of people are overlooking Sweden. I know they didn't look great against Netherlands, but Sweden aren't out of this either. They've got a very solid side, which shapes up for a very good quarterfinals. Before we look to wrap up things, I know we want to kind of end this before the Germany-Spain game tonight. I just want to come to each of you, because I put this on Twitter yesterday, before the games, that obviously we've done the first round of fixtures now, in terms of how you think the tournament has been received as a whole, really, in terms of we've had this first week of action. I tweeted it the other day. What's been great for me is just all football fans on my timeline, that's all they're speaking about, is the Women's Euros. Fans that have never watched. You got people tweeting going, oh, is this United player any good for so-and-so country or whatever? And I think that is fantastic. So just Mary, throwing it over to yourself in terms of how you think that the first round of matches have gone, really, for the Euros.
I think they've gone really well. I mean, we've seen records. We saw England's match at Old Trafford, of course. Where else would it be? Breaking the record for the highest attendance in a Women's Euro match. We've seen the record for the highest attendance at a group stage beaten twice already in a game that doesn't involve the host nation. So I think in that respect, in terms of people turning up, that's really, really good. I think the biggest thing for me, the thing that shows that attitudes are changing to me, is the coverage it's getting on the BBC. Because it's all very well and good paying lip service to it and saying, oh, Sky Sports have got a deal. But when Sky got the deal, what they then did was they then went, right, there's a men's game there, there's a men's game there, let's put the women's game on there. We're going to stick that on at 6:30, regardless of where you're travelling to or from. It wasn't about the brand. The Euros, it's entirely changed. I think there's one game so far out of all the games that have been on that was just on the iPlayer and wasn't available on either BBC One or BBC Two. Even one of the games that was just on was, I think it was on BBC One rather than BBC Two, and it was Denmark and Finland. So it shows that the BBC have taken it really seriously, and for everything that Lord Sugar decided to say, it's a complete own goal, I think, what he decided to throw out there, because there's too many people that are just trying to come up with an agenda of it's being forced on you, and it's not a case of it's being forced. What they don't understand is that the appetite is getting there. People do want to watch it. There is an audience, there is a market for this game to be seen, and so therefore other people do want to watch it. And unfortunately, we're still living in a world where people seem to think that their opinion is the only one that actually seems to matter. And that's why we're seeing people throwing out these stupid comments about how, I don't want to watch this game. Why is it being forced on me? And I don't think it's necessary, because people do want to watch it. It's shown by the fact that over 500,000 tickets have been sold for the entire competition. I think it's been received brilliantly. I think the games have been absolutely fantastic. I can't really recall too many that were that dull. I say that because I didn't particularly enjoy the Denmark-Finland one that was just on. I found myself doing other things whilst that was going on, and that was the first time in the entire tournament. You're never going to get every single game brilliant, but I think they were superb. 8 goals for England, 8-goal thriller. 2 games won. The Germany game was absolutely fantastic. France blew everyone out of the water when they were, not expected to do so. The trouble in the camp seems to be with Norway, not with France. So, there's going to be twists and turns everywhere. It's enjoyable, and people just need to keep on enjoying it because, the game is growing, and I absolutely love it, and I'm here for it.
100%. And Andrew, you can have the final word on this in terms of how you think that the tournament has been received as a whole. And just very quickly as well, actually, Martin made the point there. I don't actually know the answer to this question. Talking about added 30 minutes more of post-match coverage. I don't actually know the answer to that one.
Yeah, they did last night after England's game. They went off BBC One and they put it on, the post-match all on BBC Two. So we switched over to that. So that's where still carrying on the coverage even on BBC Two as well. No, it's definitely the tournament's been well received so far, and I think it's just going to go strength to strength as the tournament progresses towards its end as well. I mean, as I say, women's game is getting prime time slot on terrestrial TV. It's like if you put it in front of people and they can watch it, well, that's what we want to see more of as well. And then if you're watching it on TV, then come to a game and then you can experience it live for yourself, and say go to one game and you will want to come back and keep going to even more games. And just on Alan Sugar's comments, I've literally just been reading some of what he said. I'm like, it's ridiculous. It's like saying or complaining, well, there should be a men's commentator and women's game, and I think one of these said women's commentators in men's games is just symbolic. Well, no, football is everyone's game. For women and men, so I don't know what he's on about. So I think Ian Wright had said, well, I was booked in a year in advance to appear on this appear for the BBC for the Euro. So it's like, ridiculous comments, but that's, let's say, I was going to say he's a bit of a dinosaur then. I was going to say Lord Sugar, but like I say, just almost want to say to Lord Sugar, why don't you just come and go and watch a live game and then experience it yourself, and then you might just change his mind and say, well, look, I was wrong. The women are equally as good as the men, or even better as well sometimes. So I'd say for the Euros, it's just like I say, as it's here in England, everybody's getting behind it. I say, not just fans in England, but those that come from all other countries as well. They're getting to experience. I think there was that. Video that when Netherlands were playing the other night, that walk where all the flares and the march down. I just thought that's what you want to experience. Let's say in this tournament as well. So I can only say all good things about it, and hopefully it's carries on and into all future tournaments as well.
Fingers crossed, indeed. Yes, 100%, John. You're bang on with that one. We'll wrap it up there then. We'll be back. There's going to be a double show tomorrow. So we'll be live at 7 o'clock for the Rachel Williams reaction. But there'll be a show dropping around midday-ish. Not quite sure when. I'm not going to say who with. Just make sure to check the Twitter for that. It's a WSL reporter, been on TalkSport, got their own stuff as well. Make sure you check that one out.
It's not Jason Cundy, is it?
No. Just after midday, that one would drop. Be a slightly shorter video, but it's definitely going to be well worth a watch. Make sure you check that out. Check out the Twitter for all the information on that. And then the fans forum is being moved this week. Obviously, the England game and other reasons for Barry, but that will be on Thursday at 7 o'clock as well, where there's lots to talk about. Obviously, Kirsty Smith. We'll expand a little bit more on Rachel Williams. And, the fixtures have just been released. Liverpool away, last game of the season. So we better get the title parade ready for that to celebrate around Liverpool. But get a bit ahead of it.
That would be good. That would be good.
And then we'll be back on Saturday as well, because we'll have the third and obviously not the final Lionesses match reaction reviewing the Northern Ireland game, which might be a bit of a training exercise. But for now, obviously enjoy everyone Germany, Spain. That's going to be a cracking game tonight. If Germany get the win, I believe they're through if they win tonight. So definitely want to keep an eye on. Make sure you're following Baron Andrew if you're not already. I'm pretty sure you already are. But for now, guys, we'll see you guys soon. Cheers, guys.
And subscribe.